1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So, therefore, if you have any doubt, this is Rabbi Perl. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I say that because it all depends on when you tune in, but whatever time it is, you are welcome. Well, as I look at the calendar, we have less than a week to the holiday of Passover. And since the first and last day of Passover is on a Sunday, this will be our program. And then we'll get back to you with Hashem's help, with the Almighty's help, in exactly 3 weeks from now. But let's dedicate our thoughts today to the holiday of Passover with some fascinating insights to uplift, to inspire ourselves for the great Seder. Remember, the Seder is next Saturday night and Sunday night, 2 Seders. Don't cheat yourself out of the Seder. The word Seder means order. When we celebrate the holiday on both those evenings, making a Seder, we bring order, we bring focus, we bring great blessings to every aspect of our life. When we eat matzah on the first night and the second night, each of them brings a special blessing. The shmura matzah, the hand-baked matzahs in particular, the first night strengthens our faith, our connection to God, and the second night, Seder, strengthens our physical health. So both nights represent the most physical and spiritual success. So let me first share with you what I would think is rather uplifting, and that is, let's call it Amazon's Seder table. Now, in his massively successful book called Built to Last, there's a gentleman called Jim Collins, and he writes that one of the things that successful, enduring companies share is that they foster a company culture that shapes the mindsets and the behaviors of the employees. And I'm sure every one of you out there who ran a company, part of each company has their culture. Now, this much sought after culture is actually created by physical embodiments of its key principles. It's not just something abstract and generic. Each company has the way they look, the way you could say the advertisements, the way the office is set up. So crucial to cementing a company's culture is, I would call, a shock value, creating a conversation that leads to changes in behavior. And today, in the different kinds of companies out there, especially during the year of the COVID, it's certainly this lens. There's tremendous veracity to what I'm about to tell you. I'm going to give you an example. Very early on, Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon.com, he envisioned a company that would make money by delivering value to, rather than extracting value from, its customers. So his philosophy is, we're here to deliver value to you. In order to do that, he aimed to be both the price and customer service leader for the long run. You can't do it, of course, if you waste a lot of money. So Amazon's margins have always been extraordinarily tight. So Bezos could have spent years auditing every expense and raining hell on anybody who overspent. But he decided to build frugality into the Amazon's culture. There wasn't a set of rules, but instead a framework and a sensibility. He did it with incredibly simple mechanism. Listen to this, my friends. All the desks at Amazon, no matter how successful the company became, would be built by buying cheap doors from the Home Depot and nailing legs to them. Now, these door desks are not, I would say, ergonomically spectacular. They certainly don't fit in with the Amazon's 150 billion plus market capitalization. But when a shocked new employee asks why she must sit on a makeshift desk constructed out of random Home Depot parts, the answer came back with a withering, I would say, consistency. Listen to this. We look for every opportunity to save money so that we can deliver the best products for the lowest cost. If you don't like sitting at a door, then you won't last long at Amazon. The desk is the doctrine. Now, we do the same thing at the Seder table. We want to create a culture of re-experiencing the Exodus. This is our focus. This is our priority. So we place physical symbols on the table that shock us into visceral experience. Bitter herbs, 4 cups of wine, the matzah, the roasted shank bone, and the veggies dipped into salt water. Now these symbols spark questions about the meaning of slavery and freedom and memory and history. So we tell our children the story of the Exodus and explain how we were commanded to create a society that was the opposite of Egypt. One based not on wealth or power, but on justice and compassion. A society in which a loving God is sovereign and every citizen is created in his image. So like sitting at an Amazon Home Depot table, the Seder table is a vivid, multi-sensory experience, an atmosphere as much as an event. We eat matzah, the unleavened bread of affliction, and taste more until tears well up in our eyes as the bitterness of the oppression. So we encourage our children to question, to analyze, and explore. So the Seder experience is so powerful that 3,300 years later, after the Exodus, it hasn't been forgotten, and we're still doing that. This, dear friends, is an introduction to a very, I would say, serious dimension of what the Seder is all about. The Seder is all about transmitting it to the next generation. I know with the COVID, we're kind of limited, but the concept is that we encourage our children and grandchildren to participate in the Seder. Because their participation in the Seder is the participation in Jewish history. They are taking their place, connecting the past into their present, and ensuring a future. Have that in mind as I ask a question that we recently did at one of our Sunday morning special sessions on Zoom, where we discussed, where is Moses in the Haggadah? Can you imagine the story of the American Revolution and not mentioning George Washington? Or mentioning the story of the Civil War and not mentioning Abraham Lincoln? Or even the story of civil rights movement and deleting Martin Luther King Jr.'s name? I mean, we should get to do such a thing. And yet in the entire Haggadah, as we tell the story of the Exodus, we do not mention the man who did it all, Moses. How can this be? We mention everybody else. Pharaoh, the Egyptians, the frogs, the lice, the locusts. We speak of God and his people. We speak of the four sons and all the children and all the questions. We address the tyrants of every generation. Yet the hero, who is so responsible for the entire event, is gone. Absent. Nada. Absurd. No. This is a question that we discussed, and we presented then some answers that it was humility of Moses, therefore his name was not mentioned, just briefly mentioned. Another insight was that we want to focus, it's God who ran the show. It wasn't about Moses, it was all about God. God is the direct interceder, and he was the one intervened, and he made all the amazing miracles at the Exodus, and therefore Moses' name is played out, basically, not mentioned in any great way. Today I'm going to give you another answer. A very uplifting and yet very serious answer on why Moses' name is not mentioned in any way in the Haggadah. Now, I know that there are many translations and people show me, says, I'm talking about the original Haggadah only briefly mentions how everybody believed in God and Moses, his servant. But no reference to any actions of Moses, even making the plagues and interceding and speaking to Pharaoh. I mean, the Torah itself has no qualms about mentioning it hundreds of times. And yet, we don't find that in the Haggadah, in any form or fashion. The answer, my friends, is not blowing in the wind. The answer is right here. And that is, let me just put, typically Jewish way of answering a question is to ask another one. In the entire Torah, we only find one instance where Moses becomes jealous of his brother. And the circumstances are rather strange. You see, when it occurs in context of Moses' prayer that God appoint a successor as a leader of the Jewish people after he would pass away. And God says to him, you're going to pass away like your brother did in a very special way. Now, what we find is that Moshe was desired to die as Aaron had died. It's not just simply the way he passed away, his format of his passing. What he envisioned, what he had a certain envy of his brother was that he knew that when Aaron passed away, his brother Aaron had children who would continue on. His children, Aaron's children, would be Kohanim, would be priests, and they would continue on. In this case, he was envious of. He knew that his own children, Gershon and Eliezer, would not be the leaders, as his brother had his children. Now the Ksaf Sofer, one of the famous insights of the great Rabbi, explains this more. That Aaron had the privilege of knowing that his children would follow in his footsteps. His own son Elazar was appointed the high priest in his lifetime. And to this very day, Kohanim are direct descendants of Aaron. Moses longed to see one of his children, Gershon and Eliezer, take his place as a leader. It was not to be. Now there's another reason as well that we see coming from this, is that the fact that it's not automatic that leadership or Torah learning goes on from one generation to the next in that terms. Because there's no such thing as nepotism over here. The great Maimonides tells us that every one of us has the ability to rise to the crown of Torah. Everybody has that. So therefore, in this case, Moses, therefore, sadly, was denied the chance to see his children inherit his role. So this was a personal disappointment for him. You see, Torah leadership is not a prerogative of the elite. It's not just passed down by dynasty. It's not confined to those descendants from great scholars. It's open to all of us. Okay. So Moses was given a great consolation by God, and he said, listen, just as to this day Kohanim will be the sons of Aaron, so Torah will be studied by the disciples of Moses. As man was given the Torah, every one of us continue in the sense we are like a child to Moses. By us studying, we continue that legacy of his life. But you can see the sadness here, my friends. Despite all of this, it's not easy for Moses to see that his own children were deprived their own father's position. He craved for his children to replace him and follow the road that he had paved. This didn't happen. You can understand, Moses was unbelievable, so to speak. The most successful, brilliant, anyone in history. He changed civilization. The hero of the holiday of Passover is Moses. He is the man who did it all. He is the man chosen by God to lead us out of Egypt, craft us into a nation, give us the Torah, teach us, etc. And yet, in one respect, his own brother Aaron surpassed him. Because Aaron had the privilege Moses was denied, namely that seeing his children and their descendants inherit his role. That pained Moses, and he tried to reverse that. See, the whole holiday of Passover was a holiday dedicated to telling the story to our children, imparting the experience to the next generation. Moses himself tells us many times that the primary purpose of Passover and the Seder is to share and inculcate the story within our children. So perhaps it is not for this reason that Moses' name is not in the Haggadah. Moses remains our greatest teacher and leader, but the focus of the Haggadah is V'gadat levincha, to impart the story to our children. For thousands of years, every Passover, we ensure our future by creating the only guarantee for our survival. We have a meal in which we talk to our children. We join in the Seder in which we discuss who we are and where we come from. We inspire our children and talk about our values. We have a warm and open relationship with our children based on honest dialogue, on frank discussions, on meaningful questions and answers. In this, my friends, Moses did not succeed. His children were not part of the story. They did not continue his story. I want to tell you this, and I know this is something very, very important. I want to ask you a question. If you were forced to put a price tag on those precious moments that create family ties, eternal family memories, an experience that allows you to impart the deepest value to your children, right? Would you be willing to say they're worth $13 million? Would you be willing to to spend that? This was the amazing test faced by a professional Major League Baseball player some time ago, quite a few years ago. And this is a stunning response with a lesson that's so profound for us as we are about to sit down at the Seder table. It happened to Adam LaRoche, a baseball veteran who played 12 seasons in the majors, previously for the Washington Nationals and most recently, I guess, for the Chicago White Sox. Adam came to spring training expecting to continue his long-standing tradition, which was very important to him, and it was included in his contract. What was that? He was the father of a homeschooled child, Drake, and he took him along to the clubhouse frequently so he could be a father figure regularly and oversee his child's growth to maturity. For Adam, spending time with his son was at least as important as reaching fame in his field, a profession that had added a bonus of being extremely rewarding financially. And so Adam made sure that Drake would be with him as much as possible. He taught Drake discipline and responsibility by encouraging him to help out in the clubhouse and filling the role of a bat boy. Best of all, though, Adam's efforts gave them the opportunity to spend time together, to foster the kind of relationship that ensures understanding, love, and respect between the two generations. Drake was the team's mascot, and the other players enjoyed having him around. It isn't uncommon for some players to bring their sons to the clubhouse, especially someone like Drake, who is now a teenager. So for more than a few players, it's part of the baseball tradition. But here comes the clincher. One year in the spring training, the executive vice president of the Chicago White Sox had a change of heart about the boys' presence with the players. Adam LaRoche was told he could no longer bring Drake to the ballpark at all. As Adam LaRoche puts it, I had to make a decision. Do I choose my career or do I choose my family? Remember, Adam had a year to go in his contract, which would pay him $13 million for the season. He could resign and forfeit that money, or he could accept the new limitations on his relationship with his son. LaRoche said the decision was not difficult. Of one thing I am certain, we will regret not spending enough time with our kids, not the other way around. This was likely to be the last year of my career, and in no way was I going to spend it without my son. So guess what? He did not play that season. He chose family over fame and fortune. But this is far more than just a story about a ball player and his once-in-a-lifetime test of the value of a father-son relationship. All of us need to reflect on the importance of making right decisions when it comes to the choice between our career or our family, between the growth of our portfolios or the progress of our children. So, on Passover, we are meant to acknowledge that our families come first. And if we don't recognize that, we are still enslaved as much as we were back in Egypt. Slaves to taskmasters who come in the form of careers which demand 24/7 obedience. Slaves to taskmasters offering obscene monetary compensation at the price of distancing ourselves from our loved ones. Slaves to our taskmasters who force us to choose the profane over the sacred, the insignificant over the truly important. So, my friends, when we think about Moses and his name missing in the Haggadah, a perspective is the fact that he didn't have his children following him. He didn't have those children in a relationship that could have possibly given them the position of leadership. And that's why he was envious of his brother. Although Aaron passed away at the time, but he has his children continuing on. There was a direct link and continuity between one generation to the other. And so, this is a suggestion on why Moses' name was missing. Because the key to the whole Seder is talking to one's children. Moses didn't have that. The importance of helping children. I want to tell you a quick story. Back in November 1938, before the onset of the Second World War, some Jewish children had the opportunity, you may know this, to escape from Nazi Germany. It became known as the Kindertransport, and they resettled in England, no less. Many of these children came from different observant homes, and there were not enough religious families to accept all these children. Other families who were willing to take them in were not willing to raise the children with the values and the traditions that they grew up with. The chief rabbi of London at that time was Rabbi Abramsky. When I was younger, I davened in his shul. He embarked on the frantic campaign to secure funding to ensure that every Jewish child would be placed in the proper environment. Remember, these children were separated from their parents. So he called at that time a wealthy Jewish industrialist in England and asked him for a very sizable amount of money to make sure that these children be brought up in a proper Jewish environment. So he said to him, "It's pur pikuach nefesh," he cried the rabbi. At that point, the tycoon became incensed. "Rabbi, please do not use that word flippantly. I know what pikuach nefesh means. It means a matter of life and death. When I was young, my parents were very observant. When my baby sister was young, she became very sick. We had to call the doctor. It was on Shabbos. My father was very conscientious about the sanctity of Shabbos. He would never desecrate the Shabbos. But our rabbi said, this is a matter of life and death, and we were allowed to desecrate the Shabbos. He called the situation of life and death pikuach nefesh. So he says to the Rabbi Abramsky, with all due respect, these children are already here in England. They're safe from the Nazis. How they are raised is not pikuach nefesh. That's not life-saving how they grow up. With that, the man said goodbye and hung up the phone. That Friday night, the wealthy man was sitting at dinner when the telephone rang incessantly. Finally, the man picked it up and answered the phone. As he listened to the voice of the other end of the line, his face went pale. What did he hear? "This is Abramsky. This is Rabbi Abramsky. I would not call you on Shabbos if I did not think this was pikuach nefesh, saving lives. Again, I implore you, we need funds to ensure that these children will be raised in the proper manner." The man responded immediately to the appeal. So as we sit at the Seder table, we must ask ourselves as well, am I giving my children and grandchildren and all my loved ones money, shelter, food, physical needs, and education? Or am I also giving them my very self, my soul, my history, my faith, my God, my Torah, my passion, my love, and my neshama? This, my friends, is the question we must ask ourselves at the Seder table. And just as this thought that Moses' name was missing because his children ultimately were not there, they became missing, we must make every effort to make sure that our children and other people's children are not missing, not only at the Seder table, but giving them the opportunity to have a proper Jewish education, to support those causes that bring that, and most importantly, as they say, charity starts at home, ourselves as well, in making sure that our children and grandchildren have that. So, I must tell you, this coming next week, next Saturday, is the eve of the holiday. I just want to briefly remind everyone of the importance of knowing not to get confused, because on Shabbos itself, we aren't doing anything that is contrary to what Shabbos is. So all the preparations for the Seder are all done on Friday. For example, the searching for the chometz, which we usually go around with a feather and a candle, is not done on Friday night, the eve before the holiday. It's done on Thursday night, a day earlier. The fast of the firstborn is on Thursday morning. We burn the chometz on Friday morning. It's done on a Friday morning, not on the eve, because on Shabbos we can't burn the fire. All the preparations for the Seder are done on Friday itself. Now, Friday night and Shabbos morning, we have to finish our Shabbos morning meal before the time of what would be the end of eating chometz, which is all at around no later than 10:30, 10:45. So in our synagogue and all the synagogues, there's very early morning prayers. So the prayers are concluded. People have enough time to go home, eat their Shabbos morning meal all before the deadline. Now, what makes it interesting is that it's Shabbos, but also Erev Pesach. So on the terms of Shabbos, we also usually eat challah. So we have little pita bread or little small challah rolls. That's the only chometz that is eaten on Friday night at the meal and on Saturday morning, this early morning meal. And the rest of the dishes, the food, that's all Pesach. So we have to be very careful, to be able to eat the challah separately, away from the table, either on a deck, somewhere elsewhere. Eat it, wipe down, throw what's left over, down the bathroom. But remember, the rest of the day is only Passover foods. So this makes this Shabbos somewhat different, very inspiring, because don't worry, we have the ability to perform both the Shabbos experience in the proper manner as well as prepare for the Seder. Now, in the afternoon, or next Saturday afternoon, it's a time to rest. It's a time to sit back, read up on the Haggadah, and therefore in the evening, the Seder begins not on Saturday. It can't begin before 8:05. Remember, the next morning is Sunday. What's the rush? The bagel stores are all closed, so we can have a nice, wonderful Seder. Everybody's rested up. We don't come in rushed in any different way, and have in mind the meaning of the Seder. Remember, it's there's 15 steps in the Seder, and the 15 also corresponds to the Jewish calendar date, is the 15th day of the month of Nisan. There's a full moon, which a full moon represents our ability to shine, to provide guidance, and to reflect the greatness of why Hashem has blessed each and every one of us in being in this world, being alive, and making this a home for the Almighty God. So Hashem bless everybody. Wishing you a Chag Kosher V'Sameach, a wonderful, inspiring Passover, and looking forward to speaking to you the Sunday after Passover. Stay well.